During the 31st century BC, the Nile Valley was home to two distinct civilizations: Upper Egypt in the south, whose people worshipped the god Set, and Lower Egypt in the north, where the god Horus was held in high esteem. These two regions had developed independently for centuries, each with its own culture, governance, and spiritual traditions, yet they shared the same lifeline, the mighty Nile River. While both Upper and Lower Egypt advanced at a relatively similar pace, the closing decades of the 32nd century BC saw a pivotal shift in power due to Upper Egypt's expanding trade with neighboring civilizations such as Mesopotamia. This contact not only enriched Upper Egypt economically but also accelerated its urban development, with cities like Thinis emerging as centers of political and military strategy. As the southern cities flourished, their hunger for resources intensified, pressing them to look northward for expansion. Amidst this backdrop, a formidable figure arose: Narmer, a tribal king of Thinis, whose ambition and military prowess would alter the course of history. Known by the honorific title, Menes, meaning, he who endures, Narmer envisioned a united Egypt under a single rule. With this dream, he formed the Thinite Confederacy, an alliance of powerful tribal leaders determined to subdue the north. Fueled by a unified command and driven by a common cause, this confederation waged a successful campaign against the disparate nomes of Lower Egypt. The war culminated in total victory, as Narmer overcame the northern provinces and declared himself the first pharaoh of a unified Egypt, marking the beginning of the early dynastic period. This historic milestone is captured in the Narmer Palette, an engraved ceremonial slate over 2 feet tall discovered in the city of Nekhen, also known by its Greek name Hierakonpolis. The front side of the palette depicts Narmer in a dominant, smiting pose, wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt and towering above his defeated enemy, whose hair he grasps as he raises a mace to deliver a fatal blow. This image, rich in symbolism and hierarchy, emphasizes Narmer's divine authority and martial supremacy. Above the enemy stands the falcon god Horus, perched atop papyrus stalks, a symbol of Lower Egypt. The falcon clutches a rope attached to the enemy's face, signifying total domination. At the top of the palette is a serac, an early palace facade design enclosing 2 glyphs: a catfish, pronounced Nar, and a chisel, pronounced Mer. These 2 hieroglyphs together spell out Narmer's name and represent some of the earliest written language in human history. The reverse side of the palette tells the continuation of Narmer's conquest. It displays a royal procession where Narmer, now wearing the red crown of Lower Egypt, marches past rows of bound, naked, and decapitated enemies with their heads placed between their legs, a grim display of his unquestioned dominance. Below this scene, 2 mythical creatures called serpopods, serpent-leopard hybrids with entwined necks, are pulled by attendants, symbolizing the merging of Upper and Lower Egypt. At the bottom, Narmer appears as a bull smashing through the walls of a northern city and trampling a fallen enemy beneath his hooves, further reinforcing the theme of conquest. The Narmer Palette is not just a piece of art, it is a political document and a religious icon, underscoring the ideology of divine kingship and the beginning of one of history's longest-lasting civilizations. The same ideology is reflected in another significant artifact from Hierakonpolis, the Narmer Macehead, a limestone ceremonial weapon that commemorates his unification of Egypt. The macehead shows Narmer seated on a throne, wearing the red crown of Lower Egypt, while attendants present him with treasure, livestock, and captives. Inscriptions at the bottom of the macehead list the spoils of war, boasting the acquisition of 400,000 cattle, over 1 million goats, and 120,000 human captives, reflecting the sheer scale of the conquest and the wealth it brought to the newly unified kingdom. With military conquest complete, Narmer's next challenge was to unite 2 culturally distinct regions into a single cohesive kingdom. He approached this diplomatically by marrying Neithotep, a princess from Lower Egypt, thereby establishing legitimacy and fostering unity between the northern and southern territories. This union helped stabilize the newly formed nation, which came to be known among its people as the 2 lands, a phrase that would persist throughout ancient Egyptian history as a symbolic representation of their dual heritage. Narmer's rule laid the foundations for Egypt's centralized monarchy, a divine kingship where the pharaoh was both political leader and god on earth. To maintain control and efficiency, Narmer reorganized the administration of the kingdom, setting up a bureaucracy of scribes, priests, and governors who would report directly to the throne. He also initiated the construction of Egypt's first capital at Memphis, strategically located at the apex of the Nile Delta where Upper and Lower Egypt converged. Memphis quickly grew into a cultural and commercial hub, facilitating trade routes across the Mediterranean and into Africa and the Near East. Under Narmer's rule, religious and symbolic traditions were codified. Symbols such as the Ankh, representing life, and the Djed pillar, symbolizing stability, and Osiris spine, became central to Egyptian iconography. Narmer was not only concerned with domestic affairs, he extended his military campaigns into Canaan and Nubia, securing Egypt's borders and enhancing its influence across the region. These expeditions brought in additional wealth and resources, further solidifying Egypt's role as a powerful player in the ancient world. Narmer's leadership style combined the brute force of a warrior with the strategic insight of a statesman. He was both feared and respected, seen not just as a conqueror but as a unifier ordained by the gods. His success was due in large part to his ability to harness divine legitimacy through his association with Horus, the falcon god of kingship, and later Set, whose powers he absorbed through conquest. His name was immortalized in temple inscriptions and funerary texts for centuries to come. Upon his death, Narmer was entombed in the necropolis of Abydos, a sacred burial ground for Egypt's earliest kings, including his successors of the First Dynasty. His tomb, though modest by later standards, became a prototype for future royal burials and was filled with items symbolizing his victories, divine status, and the legacy he left behind. Narmer's son and heir, Hor-Aha, continued his father's legacy and strengthened the unified state, but it was Narmer who had lit the torch. His reign ushered in the early dynastic period, a transformative age marked by centralized rule, monumental art, and the invention of writing in the form of hieroglyphics. These innovations would endure for millennia, shaping one of history's most extraordinary civilizations. Through blood, diplomacy, and divine authority, Narmer transformed fragmented tribal territories into a single powerful kingdom that would stand the test of time. Egypt's identity as the two lands endured through dynasties, foreign invasions, and revolutions, and at the heart of that enduring identity stood Narmer, the warrior king who carved his legacy into stone and reshaped history with every stroke of his mace. The unification of Upper and Lower Egypt was not just a political
event. It was a spiritual convergence, a cosmic alignment that gave birth to a civilization whose echoes still resonate through pyramids, temples, scrolls, and the very Nile itself. Narmer's story is more than history. It is the origin myth of a nation, a legend of order rising from chaos, of two rivers becoming one, and of a man who dared to rule both earth and the gods.